Have you ever noticed how two stories from the exact same place can feel like they're from two different worlds? Well, today we're diving into that exact idea by looking at two films from the Bagheli region. One is a comedy that uses laughter to deal with family pressure, and the other, well, it's a tragedy that confronts a deeply unjust system head-on. So that brings up a really interesting question, doesn't it? Can these two totally different genres actually be getting at the same core truth about the world? Let's find out. We're going to start with the comedy, which tackles a social pressure I think a lot of us can relate to. All right, first up, we have a film called Vivah Sampan Hua, which basically means the marriage is complete. And it's all about this young guy who becomes the #1 target in his family's obsessive mission to get him married. And our hero just nails his entire problem with this one line. For him, marriage isn't something he chooses, it's something that is being done to him. You can just feel the total lack of control he has. It's not a partnership, it's a procedure. And when you look at his family, you totally get why he feels this way. It's a full-court press. His grandma is basically asking about grandkids every 5 minutes. His mom, who seems to get all her life lessons from TV dramas, just wants a daughter-in-law to boss around. And his dad's logic is just, I had you, now it's your turn. No wonder the poor guy feels less like a groom and more like, as he puts it, the sacrificial goat. So how does he fight back against this tidal wave of family pressure? Well, his main weapon is sarcasm. But he also tries to take matters into his own hands by finding a girlfriend himself, to have a love marriage instead of an arranged one. The problem is his attempts are hilariously bad. They're just these comically awful failures that makes his whole situation even more desperate and, for us, even funnier. And here's the punchline. After all the sarcastic comments, all the rebellion, all the failed schemes, he just gives in. He completely surrenders. The movie ends with him basically throwing his hands up and accepting the exact fate his family wanted for him all along. Okay, so take a deep breath because we are doing a complete 180 now. Our second film, Booyah, also kicks off with a story about love, but it quickly spirals into a really dark and tragic look at power, caste, and what happens when justice completely fails. So let's meet our new protagonist, Booyah. The first thing we learn about him is what he lacks. He has no father, no mother, which in this world means he has no known caste. He's an outsider from the get-go. So when he falls for a woman named Sugni, that social status immediately becomes this huge, tragic roadblock. Booyah's life is really this heartbreaking journey of hope found and then lost. After his own chance at love is crushed because of his caste, he finds a new purpose. He adopts an abandoned baby girl, Chanda, and pours every ounce of his being into her future. His dream? For her to get an education, to become an officer, to rise above the very system that held him down. But that system? It's about to come for his dream in the worst way imaginable. And this is where everything shatters. All of that hope, all of that fatherly love is about to collide with the brutal, ugly reality of the world they live in. His daughter Chanda, the very symbol of his dreams for a better future, is brutally assaulted. And the person who did it isn't some random criminal. No, it's the son of the most powerful man in the area, the local landlord known as the Thakur, a man who is, for all intents and purposes, completely above the law. So when Booyah goes to the Thakur, the attacker's father, to demand justice, what does he get? He doesn't get an apology. He doesn't get accountability. He gets an offer, 50,000 rupees. It's not a settlement. It's hush money. They're literally putting a price tag on his daughter's life and his silence. In that single moment, you can see it click for Booyah. He realizes the system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it's supposed to protect the powerful. There is no justice for people like him. So if the law won't deliver it, he will. What follows is just this awful, tragic chain reaction. Chanda's suicide isn't just an act of despair. It's a final, desperate plea. In her last note, she begs her father to get the justice she never could. And Booyah, the loving father who dreamed his daughter would uphold the law, becomes a killer to fulfill her dying wish. Because the law, it had already failed them both. So let's just pull back for a second. We've got one story that ends with wedding bells and another that ends in a double murder. These films grew from the exact same cultural soil. So what are they trying to tell us when we look at them side by side? And this table really just lays it all bare, doesn't it? In the comedy, the fight is the individual against his family. The stakes are pretty low. It's really about personal preference. His response is sarcasm, and the outcome is that he just accepts his fate. But in the tragedy, it's the individual against the entire system. The stakes are life, dignity, justice, everything. The response isn't wit, it's violence. And the outcome isn't acceptance, it's complete and utter destruction. But here's the fascinating connection. For all their differences, both stories are fundamentally about being trapped. One guy is trapped by the well-meaning but totally suffocating expectations of his family. The other is trapped by a cruel, unjust social hierarchy. In both of these realities, the individual is basically powerless against these much larger forces. So, what's the big takeaway here? Both films show us a person caught in a cage that society built. The comedy suggests that sometimes the most realistic thing to do is just laugh and accept the cage. But the tragedy screams that when that cage becomes unbearable, when it's crushing your soul, the only honest response left is to fight back, even if it destroys you. And maybe the real truth is that both reactions are honest. It just depends on the kind of cage you're in.